Welcome back to Obsession Engineering and welcome back to Adam's little RVF project. Adam looks very cheerful today, and that's because he's been out in the car and he's collected lots of things that are useful. He's got a powder-coated front wheel. He's also got a nice powder-coated rear subframe, and as well as those, he's got...
the exhaust is done.
Which is lovely after our... not brilliant welding. We've actually given it to somebody who actually knows what they're doing welding, and they've glued the back on it.
Yeah. When I took it to the to Key Weld of Lincoln, thank you very much for doing this. They did have to bring one of the guys out because he wanted to give him a laugh. Apparently, our welding was comical, and pigeons were mentioned, which I took to be a good thing, but it probably isn't. But at least that's done, and we can get it back on the bike.
Yep, so the plan today is to put the front wheel back in it, to put the rear subframe on, to put the under tray in it, put the exhaust pipe on it, and generally make it look like a motorbike. And the best thing about this is, it'll be back on its wheels, which means it can come off my workbench.
Nope, it's staying. It's going to stay there. That's where it lives.
As soon as your back is turned, I'm pushing it outside.
That's a bit harsh.
Well, only while I'm here.
Oh, okay, fair dues. In that case, fill your boots.
Now that Adam's done a lovely job of cleaning up the sort of excess powder coat, we need to put the bearings back in, and for that we're going to need, firstly, the bearings, and then we're also going to heat the wheel up a little bit so that it expands slightly so the bearings can fit fairly easily, and then we're going to use a drift sort of thing and a hammer. Yeah, that's about it really. Get me in about the right place, give me a bit of a tap. Right, so the wheel is nice and warm now. The bearings do not need to be put in the freezer today because the workshop is actually colder than that anyway. So I shall drop that in there, and doesn't quite go in the hole, but it's not a million mile off. And then and you can hear the tone change when it hits the bottom of the hole, so that's one bearing slipped in very nicely. Right, back with the heat gun, please. Right, wheel spacer, or bearing spacer. Which would be even better if I could get it in the middle. I can't get it in the hole, Adam. Adam, I can't get it in the hole.
That's what she said.
Right, Adam's useful tip for the day is to put the tyre, the wheel while you're working on it, on a tyre, which is very handy, because it stops you marking anything up. And now that's in, we'll just get the seals, give them a little bit of a push. Right, bearings and seals are fitted. The next thing to do is put the discs back on. So just give the discs a little bit of a spin round to make sure there's no sort of flat spots underneath. That looks pretty good. And then it's just a case of lining the holes up, getting the bolts ready, and we will be putting a bit of Loctite on the bolts and torquing the bolts up, because of all the things you don't want to fall apart on your bike while you're riding it, the brakes is normally fairly high on the agenda. The other little trick I've done is I've put the new tyre valve in before we've put the disc on, because it's just easier to pull it through the gap when there's nothing in the way. You don't need tons and tons of Loctite, you just need a couple of drops on each bolt, and that'll hold it. So then Adam's front wheel is now ready to go back in the bike. The tyre is fitted and balanced. Conveniently, the discs don't actually matter which way round they're going because they are unidirectional. No, bidirectional. That's the right way, isn't it? Bi for 2, uni for 1. We all know the advantages of bi sometimes. Right, let's get that put in a motorbike. So now your front wheel's in, next job is the rear subframe. So give us a very quick demonstration of how that fits on the bike.
Basically, it just fits like so.
Excellent. Probably ought to put some bolts in that then.
Can I not use duct tape?
Well, you could. Not sure it'll support your weight though.
Are you implying that I'm fat?
So moving on, we're going to put the bolts into the subframe.
Round there, and then clips in there.
Are you enjoying yourself?
I am. it's like having a jigsaw puzzle, and you've seen the picture once, and then you've destroyed it, and then you're trying to put it back together without referring of a picture, because I didn't take pictures. But it's fun working it all out, and so far things are going back where they should be, I think. But I've got a book, so I might check it.
So what you're actually saying is we have a book, a manual with all of this information in,
Yes.
and we have recorded video, which would almost undoubtedly have all this information in.
All apart from we didn't record me taking it off.
Ah, a good point, well made.
Yes. But I'm enjoying just trying to figure it out and working it out for myself.
Excellent.
Every day's a learning day.
It is indeed. And to be fair, it's looking pretty good.
Yeah.
The nice thing is that everything is actually clean, so that's always a bonus, because it's always easier to clean stuff as you're putting it together than it is to try and clean it later. We'll ignore that rusty bolt. That is on the list to get changed later.
Yes. Apart from that, everything is starting to go back on. Lots of progress made.
So this looks like decent progress, Adam, because the rear subframe's on, all the wiring's what appears to be in the right place, the overflow bottles in the right place, and the under tray's on. And has it been nice and straightforward?
Of course, we know exactly what we're doing, to some extent, which has taken me many hours of figuring out where all the wiring goes, because it wasn't wired the right way. We've had to move some stuff, which meant taking bits off to put back on again, then to take them off to feed it through another route. But yeah, apart from that, it's all been tickety-boo.
Excellent. Well, it is at least another step closer.
It is.
It's looking considerably more like a motorbike with a rear subframe on it and the wiring in place and a front wheel in it.
We can now move it.
We can, but the next thing is to put the handlebars back on, which you've still got to paint, haven't you?
I'm thinking I might go a different direction.
Are you? Nice. Lovely pair of ape hangers.
Yes. I think on this, beautiful. That I think is going to be the new craze. Little 400 with oh. Yeah, for the summer, relax. You can breeze the pits and keep you cool and dry.
Okay, it would appear that Adam's been drinking too much during the afternoon and now has all spannering rights taken off him.
I haven't had much sleep. I was a little bit tired.
Oh well. Right, that is it for this afternoon. We'll be back tomorrow to do a little bit more. But, you know, if you're watching this later, when we say tomorrow, we mean in about 3 seconds' time. So the next job on the little RVF 400 is to paint some stuff. Isn't that right, Adam?
Yep.
And the things to paint are the side stand pivot thing that bolts to the frame, the modified side stand, and the handlebars, because they look grotty when there's nothing on them, but even when the switchgear and bits is on, you can still see the gaps in the paint. So once Adam's arranged his little bits of welding wire to hang everything, we shall then unhang them, take them outside and waft them with paint. So while Adam's shiny bits are drying, he's out in the rest of the workshop prepping up the next job. What are you doing next, Adam?
Giving the exhaust a bit of a clean. It's a bit, you know, minging. So just giving it a bit of a clean up. It's looking considerably better already.
But is it as good as chicken in sunglasses?
No. Right, so I came up and said earlier to Dave and to not so good start, because we can't swear in his videos. And I said there was a thing back in the day that chicken used to wear these like red sunglasses to stop them killing each other. They don't believe me. They've yet to look it up on Google, and I'm going to laugh at them to say that I was right.
So you're saying that back in the day they used to put little sunglasses on chickens to stop them fighting with each other?
Yes.
And you think we should believe you with this?
Yes. It's got to be true. I saw it on the telly.
Okay. So then, everybody back home, if they start Googling chickens with sunglasses, and it's Adam's fault what you find on the internet.
This could crash the internet. If everyone starts searching for it, it's going to crash.
while Adam's cleaning his pipe, I'm doing an incredibly cost-effective modification to the Honda because I'm taking this terrible HRC sticker and making it look like it hasn't got one, because I've just taken them off because I think they look crap. What do you think, Adam?
I only put them on the other day and they were 12 quid a side.
There's no need to thank me. The handlebars are dry.
They are, and shiny.
Which is a bonus. So I think the next thing we ought to do really is actually fit them to the bike. And we'll just slip the top yoke back off, slide one handlebar down each leg, and then bolt the yoke back on. Now there should be little circlips that sit here that the handlebars sit against, but I don't think we've actually got those. But once they're bolted in place, we shouldn't actually need them anyway. Okay, the circlips aren't particularly critical, but I decided it'd be nice to have something in there so the handlebar sits in the right place. So I've just put some lock wire round in the little groove, and if I slide it round, the actual sort of end tab of the lock wire I've bent down so it's mostly out of the way. Better if I don't hit the camera with it. Move that round out of the way. So that is a little bit more like standard.
OCD.
So the bike's looking considerably better with handlebars on it, and especially because they're actually shiny. So they're making a distinct difference. The fact the clutch perch isn't shiny now stands out a little bit, which is a shame, but I'll not mention it, and hopefully Adam won't notice. Will you, Adam?
No.
Excellent. Right. That handlebar grip looks okay. The one that was on this side wasn't particularly brilliant, but I have got a brand new one, because we just happen to have a packet of Ariete ones which are exactly the same as standard on the shelf. So I'm going to put that onto there, and my trick with this, and I've shown this before, is a little squirt of brake cleaner down the end, slide it on, and then when the brake cleaner dries off, everything grips the handlebar and you don't actually need to glue them on. So I'm going to do that, and then we'll be tickety-boo. While we had the top yoke off, I thought it was a good opportunity to check the head bearings, and they were a little bit dry, so we have smeared a bit of extra grease in them. Now the easiest way to actually do the head bearings, because we had no exhaust pipes on the bike, was to put a jack underneath the engine, because the engine is flat on this, and with the rear of the bike on a paddock stand we could raise the whole bike up, or the whole front of the bike up, and it just fully extended the forks, and then with the top yoke undone and the sort of nut that holds the headstock bearings in undone, the bottom yoke just slides out a little bit and just gave us, 20mm or so to smear some grease around the bottom bearing. The bearings are actually new, there just wasn't really much grease on them, and the head bearings weren't particularly tight. So we've tightened everything back up, done the lock nut and everything back up. So yeah, it's another step closer to being off my workbench. So what are the torque settings, Ads?
Top one's a 23.
Top yoke clamp 23.
Yep. And the bottom's 40.
Yep. And the handlebars are...
And handlebars are 27.
While Adam's busy talking up, I've routed this cable the right way round, because I had it before disappearing down there, and because I hadn't routed it right, and now it's running around the outside of the sort of the front of the fork leg and then down that way, and then I've just got to reconnect this under there, which of course is considerably easier said than done, because all the wiring's buried behind the radiator, somewhere in there. Now, the nice thing is the front end of the bike is pretty close to completion. I'm going to find some slightly nicer than the white nylon bar ends to go on it. And that is about it. Maybe a little Honda logo to go in the top yoke. But I think we're looking pretty good on this. The forks go up and down, the brakes work. And the best thing is, it all looks quite nice and tidy, and it can come off the workbench. So, we're looking pretty good now. We've got shiny wheels at both ends, without any terrible Honda Racing Corporation stickers. So yeah, good stuff. What is the plan today, Adam?
Stuff. We're going to do stuff to it, which is put the exhaust back on, put some body work.
Maybe.
Almost a complete motorcycle.
Almost. It is slightly more complete today, because if we have a look down here...
you mean I put this back on?
Well, when you say you put that back on, what do you actually mean is the workshop fairies put that back on while you weren't here? Oh, hang on, Have I just called myself a fairy on the internet?
Yeah, you have.
Right, okay, so somebody very nice and useful and handsome and charming and, you know, a real catch, has put that side stand back on.
What other apprentice have you had in here then?
Right, so the side stand's back on, we'll call it that. And as I've been moving the bike around the workshop, we have noticed it drips water out the bottom of the water pump. So I am going to have a little bit of a look at that as well today, while Adam's wrestling an exhaust pipe. Right then, so looking at the water pump, obviously there is a join down here, which has a seal in it which could leak, but it doesn't appear to be leaking out of there. Where it appears to be leaking out of, if we look up here, is that hole in the middle there. Now what there is in that hole is, well, a space, because there's a seal on the back of the water pump, which in effect is sort of like two little graphite washers that rub together and supposedly don't let water through, and then there's a space with that hole in it, and on the other side there is a seal from the engine. So what happens is, if either of the two seals leak, it dribbles out of that little telltale hole and dribbles on the floor and doesn't dribble either water into the oil or oil into the water. So that all sort of makes sense. So what in effect is happening is the rotary seal that's on the back of the water pump that has these two washers just sort of face to face rubbing against each other will have gone a little bit cold or a little bit dry and is just weeping a little bit of fluid past. But when the bike runs, they normally sort of sort themselves out and stop leaking. So I'm not actually going to have to do anything with that at this stage, which is ideal. And if it leaks when we run it, it can go on the ever-growing list of things that are wrong. So getting the exhaust pipes on is a little bit fiddly, because we've got to work up there, and they've got to sort of marry to the other bits, which have to go in the back of there, and it's all a bit of a fiddle. But I'm sure we can do it. It came off, so it can go back on again. So Adam has his nuts on the flange down there. He's also just a child, but there you go. Right, because that then puts the header pipes, so they're sort of dangling down here, but it means there's a bit of movement on them. We will try and get the front pipes in while there's a bit of movement on the back, so that we can link everything together and there's, you know, a bit of play on everything, so it makes it a bit easier. It's still not the easiest thing in the world because it's a V4 and everything kind of gets a little bit congested. But we'll slip it all together and see if we can get it all to fit. Adam, do you want to show the audience your slightly wobbly end? Right, this extension has some recesses in it so the socket can do that. So, socket's got a bit shape to it, so that can go on that, because you can't go straight up onto the exhaust studs because they're slightly angled towards the radiator, but with the wobbly end you probably can get them with a ratchet, which is considerably quicker than trying to get a spanner in there into the back of there and turn it, you know, a 17th of a turn at a time. So hopefully this will be a little bit easier and Adam can get them in. So the header pipes are in. What we did was we just fed them just into the collector first a little bit, and then pushed them into the head and then got the flanges on. And it's a little bit awkward, but we have managed it, so it's not too bad. So Adam can do that up, then we just need to put some decent bolts in the clamps. We repainted the clamps and shot blasted them, and Adam had a look online, and if you want to buy the clamps, they are 30 quid each. So it's a good job we could rescue those. So that's that on. Then we just need to do the flange up at the back, and at some point put a silencer on it. But hopefully not the one with the hideous red end that we were on it before. While I was tinkering around down this side of the bike, I noticed that this nut, which sits here and, you know, holds the engine bolt in, which holds the engine in, that the bolt wasn't all the way to the end of the thread. So I thought, that's a bit strange. So I'm thinking the engine mounting bolt isn't pushed all the way through or something. So I took the nut off and I've just pushed the engine mounting bolt back a little bit to have a look. And then I've realised that the washer that the nut sits against is the wrong washer. And there's actually like a 10mm gap behind the washer in there. So, I'm not sure how well you can see it, but there is actually a gap in there. So, yeah, it's got the wrong washer in that is now really quite heavily wedged in there. So, the nut was never done up properly. So now I've just got to, you know, somehow get the washer out and then put the bolt back in and put the nut back on and get a washer that fits and actually tighten everything up. I might go around and check all the other engine mounting bolts while I'm here. So to begin with, I tried the old flick it out with the screwdriver technique, which didn't work. So then I thought, oh, it's easy, I'll get the bearing puller on it. And that didn't work either, it is that tight. So what I'm actually going to have to do next is drill a couple of holes in it and see if hopefully it will take all the strength out of it and then it'll fall out.
Ooh, have you tried shouting at it really loudly?
I muttered under my breath about it, but I'm not sure that was enough.
Scream at it. Go on.
You done right awkward thing. About like that?
No. Get out!
There's no need for that, Adam. I'm only stood here.
Yeah, no, still there.
Right, we'll drill it.
We all tried.
So what I did there was drilled a hole through it, then used a slightly bigger drill to drill the hole a bit bigger, and then just gave it a bit of a tap with the chisel, and it sort of distorted it enough that it lost all its tension and fell out of the hole. So that's excellent. And you can actually see down the hole the sort of ring mark around there, and the big gap that was behind it. So now when I push the engine bolt back through and put a smaller washer on, the nut will actually do it properly, which will be nice. So now that we have a correct size washer in, the thread goes through the bolt and actually uses the locking bit. So that's all tickety-boo. And then I've been around and I've checked the torque on the rest of the engine mounting bolts, and only that one was really, really loose, the rest were okay. So it was a good job we checked all that. Side stand's back on, the horrible exhaust silencer is back on, but it won't be staying on, it's just there. Yeah, I want to decide what to do next, really. Thanks for watching, and join us again next time when we find out if a cheap Chinese fairing actually fits a Honda.